Welcome back to Gerodynamics. Okay, so another shorter political video. So again, if you're not into that, it's kind of a political video. It's also another video about taxes, a different topic that I wanted to keep as like a short little topic. So you hear these phrases being thrown around like the rich paying their fair share, millionaires or billionaires, whatever word they want to use at the time. Millionaires and billionaires need to pay their fair share, and so we need to raise taxes. So whenever you hear that, what do you think they're talking about? Do you think they're talking about income tax? Because if they are talking about income tax, then raising the rate of income tax is not going to have a huge impact on quote unquote millionaires and billionaires. A lot of people that are extremely wealthy are wealthy not because of their wages from whatever job they have. A lot of them are wealthy because they are able to take the money they already have and invest it in capital gains, purchasing stocks, purchasing property, purchasing goods, collectibles, trade, those sorts of things. There's all sorts of ways to invest your money. So they take money they've already earned through one way or through one mean or another, and they risk it, and they use it to purchase something that they think will go up in value or they hope will go up in value. And then when they sell it, it's a gain if they made money. If it went down in value, then it's a loss. That's called capital gains and capital losses. That's probably what they're talking about taxing. So keep that in mind. If they say they want to raise the income tax percentages, that's hurting the middle class. That's not hurting the wealthy. So don't let them lie to you about that. That's something that they're trying to say. Those who earn over $400,000 also. How much does Biden make again? $400,000. He makes 400,000. That means he's trying to make sure his taxes don't go up because he's Biden. Anyways, most people aren't receiving an income in that range. So really raising income taxes doesn't do a whole lot. And we're going to get to that here shortly. But what they're talking about is raising capital gains tax or doing what's called a wealth tax, which both of those are really, really bad ideas. A tax on what's the word? Something gains, not where unrealized gains is the worst idea. So keep in mind, when you invest your money, you don't invest it and take it out in the same year, and you don't take it out every year, right? Or some people do, but for them, if you do, then that's an actual gain or a loss. But let's say I put money into this stock, it shoots up $1 million, and I have an estimated gain of $1 million, but I didn't sell it. So I don't actually have $1 million. I have the potential of having $1 million. So some politicians think they should tax that potential because reasons. But I don't actually have that money. I don't have that until I sell it. And in that case, it's a capital gains. Then yes, you pay capital gains tax on that. But if you tax the potential, then what happens when you actually sell it? Do you then get taxed again on the actual gain? And what if it's a loss? Do I get to then go back and amend my return for the previous year and take a loss, or get a refund on the amount I paid? Doesn't seem like you do. And so all of that sounds like a terrible idea. Not to mention the fact that oftentimes, and this is one of the big problems with the estate taxes, is if I have my money in the capital gains and I have to pay taxes on it, where do I get the money to pay the taxes on it? You get the money because you have to cash out a portion of that to do so. Or say you have a business that's you inherit, like a farmer. Say a farmer inherits the farm from their dad when their dad passes away. Well, then if you're going to have to pay estate taxes on that farm because it exceeds the cap for estate taxes, you would have to sell the farm if you didn't already have, a large sum of money to be able to pay the tax on it. So you don't get to keep the farm that you inherited. These are terrible ideas. Anyways, the idea that you're going to raise taxes on the wealthy and like all of these just like hoops you have to jump through to try to make that happen. That's the problem. It just doesn't make any sense. So no, that's not something we should do. But let's look at rather than it just being a bad idea, it actually doesn't accomplish the goals of raising taxes. What's the goal of raising taxes? The goal, is it to punish? Because that seems like that's the only goal that they're accomplishing. Raising taxes punishes people for making more money, right? What is supposed to be the goal of taxes? This goal of taxes is supposed to be revenue, right? So if you want more revenue, then in their mind, raising the tax rate will raise the revenue. The problem is that has never happened. So here's the thing. When you have an increase of 10% in the tax rate, the percentage. Say you have a 10% increase in tax rate. That's crazy, but we'll just throw it out there. Do you automatically think you get a 10% increase in revenue? Because you can't show me that that's ever happened. That's not what happens. In fact, in the vast majority of years, the tax revenue is typically based on the GDP, the country's GDP, not the percentage of tax that's being paid. So consistently, you can see a much closer through line, a much closer relationship between tax revenue and GDP versus tax revenue and tax rate. That's just a historical fact. You can't really you wouldn't be able to show me anywhere that shows that tax rate is a better indicator of how much revenue we will receive. Let's take a hot topic example. Trump cut taxes while he was president, right? And you nonstop get talking points about how it created a deficit, a huge deficit. They don't explain that, but where they're getting that from is they're saying that because he reduced the percentage of tax rate, that percentage of additional revenue would be this. So it's circular logic. They're saying, oh, well, you reduced the tax rate by this percentage. Revenue, if it had that additional percentage, would be this much. So that's how much he cost us, right? Well, you can't prove that, right? There's nothing that says that the tax rate would have resulted in revenue of that percentage increase. In fact, the revenue that we received increased that year. So we didn't even have a loss. We had an increase of revenue from the year that the tax law went into effect and then the following year's revenue. Revenue didn't go down until GDP went down, and that was due to the country being shut down because of the whole coronavirus thing, the whole COVID thing. That's when revenues went down, tax revenues went down, because people weren't working and paying taxes, and GDP went down. But in the year immediately following the tax rate decrease going into effect, revenues actually increased. And in fact, most years, revenue increases every year. That's why when you say that we need to increase the tax rate because we need more revenue, well, you don't have to increase the tax rate to increase revenue. It's almost every year that revenue is going to go up regardless. What we would need to do is make sure that the budget spending doesn't increase at the same rate. So let's say you were able to somehow maintain a budget that doesn't increase. You don't even have to cut. I mean, we should, but let's just say we don't even cut the budget. We just say, you know what? We're not doing annual increases to any of the budgets. The amount that we spent in 2023 is the amount we're going to spend in 2024 is the amount we're going to spend in 2025. Even if we just did that tiny little thing, revenues would continue to increase, spending would stay the same. That means the deficit decreases, and eventually the debt decreases. It's that simple. But for some reason, we can't stop spending increases, and we keep demanding that tax rates need to be increased because somehow that's magically going to increase revenue, even though it has never done that. All right, so quick and dirty on this. Basically, if we budgeted with the idea that tax revenue is going to have a steady increase, and we don't increase the tax rate, and we don't increase spending, and we just kind of leave things the way they are, if we did that, things would slowly but surely get better. We could do it a lot faster if we actually cut spending. If you went in and you did 10% cuts across the board, or you cut out big programs, or you just, figured out things that didn't need to be there. You could start from zero. That's my favorite. I did a whole video on that. If you did the budget where you started from zero and said, hey, last year revenues were this much, so let's budget up to that much from zero, instead of saying, well, last year this program got this much, so this year are we going to cut or increase that? No, you start from zero, and then you figure out, hey, this is the most important thing. We have to make sure that Social Security is paid for. That's a whole nother video coming very soon. We have to make sure the military is paid for. We have to make sure that schooling, education, because, we haven't cut the education department yet. That's another video. But, you pick and choose what's the most important things. And then when you run out of money, you stop spending. What? You stop spending when you run out of money? Who does that? All right, everybody. So keep in mind, the whole conversation about taxes is more about punishment than actually increasing revenue. And the easiest way to increase revenue is to just kind of like leave it alone and just let things happen. Because GDP is going to increase, most likely, unless you run into something like the government, or the economic shutdown. More often than not, if you run into a recession or depression, then, you have to like budget accordingly, and you figure those things out, because those are cyclical, by the way. Those happen. So you do have to plan for that. Have an emergency fund. That would be a really good idea if the country had an emergency fund. Okay, I'm getting off topic. Anyways, taxes. We don't need to increase the tax rate to increase revenue. Stop it. Stop it. Thanks. Anyways, take care. Have a good day.